and welcome to another episode of Fun with Philosophy and Ethics. You might be wondering why I'm dressed up in a SWAT team outfit today. Well, I had bought this outfit online in preparation for my Halloween festivities. Unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic, it just didn't arrive in time, and I didn't want to put it in the closet for another year. So I figured this would be a great opportunity to showcase it. And now that I'm dressed in a uniform of authority, you absolutely have to listen to what I say. After all, shouldn't you always listen to authority? This leads us into today's topic. We've been discussing logical fallacies, and last time we discussed the logical fallacy ad hominem tu quoque. Today we're going to be talking about the fallacy appeal to authority. Now, when you hear a thought leader or expert give an opinion, you might automatically assume that whatever they're saying is fact. But just because a piece of information comes from such a thought leader or expert, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that the information itself is true. Similarly, just because a piece of information comes from a respectable source, the source is not what guarantees that information is true. Evidence is what proves information to be fact. So when we're looking at a piece of information that comes from a particular source, of course, if it's a respectable or reputable authority, then we might say the likelihood of this information being true is a lot higher. But we still need to look for evidence. We still need to examine the research and the data just to make sure. We can't just assume. Otherwise, we're doing what is called outsourcing our intelligence. We're expecting someone else to do the thinking for us. And if we do that, then we're falling into the logical fallacy trap of appeal to authority. Okay, let's get into some real-life examples of how an authority has been wrong in the past. On the 23rd of October 2019, 39 bodies were discovered inside a refrigerated lorry in Essex. Before the identities of the victims could be confirmed, CNN came out and said, why are these Chinese illegal immigrants leaving one of the greatest economies in the world to come to the UK? These headlines caused outrage in China, and a lot of commentary arose out of this from politicians and the average Chinese citizen. People were infuriated that before the victims' identities could be confirmed, before the investigation was completed, CNN was assuming that the illegal immigrants were Chinese and was putting this in a headline as fact. Needless to say, at the end of the investigation, it turned out that the illegal immigrants were actually Vietnamese. And this caused a lot of ill public sentiment in China towards CNN. This is just one example of how what we normally might view as a respectable authority can still come out with information that turns out to be wrong. Let's look at another sample, Lancetgate. This example is obviously very close to home because we are now still in the thick of a global pandemic.
On the 22nd of May 2020,
an article came out questioning the effects of hydroxychloroquine, and there was a whole rift of data. This article was peer-reviewed and it was published in The Lancet. 2 weeks later, the article had to be retracted because scientists all over the world found huge flaws with the data. Some examples of issues with the research are that the authors did not comply with the standard practice of making the raw data publicly available. Another problem was that the research showed an improbable ratio for the use of chloroquine versus hydroxychloroquine. Furthermore, in certain countries that were analyzed, the level of accuracy in the statistical analysis was too high given the number of deaths in those countries. And a whole host of other problems were discovered with the research. Normally, we think of the Lancet as being a very respectable source, but this is an example of when, very recently, information that they published turned out to be very questionable. So in summary, we need to look for evidence, we need to examine the data, and we need to think critically, because anyone, including an authority or expert, could turn out to be wrong. And that is how we avoid the logical fallacy of appeal to authority. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.